Welcome to Boxing on the Record with Randy and Chi-Town. Chi-Town, what's going on with you? What you got on your mind? You want to get it off and put it on the record?
Man, Randy, I was over here, man, because it's a really bad storm. So they kind of called off everybody from work today. So we was able to stay home. So I was sitting here trying to watch this Colombo marathon. Then the whole storm kind of interrupted everything, put it on a little pause for a second. As I was going to the kitchen to try to get me a little bit of punch to drink while I'm waiting for the whole Colombo to come back on, it really made me think about this fight that's coming up with Devin and Brian Norman in November. I was like, oh, you know what? Devin punches, Brian Norman punches. I'm about to drink some punch. Let me holler at Randy so we can go ahead and get this on the record. Let's go ahead and go for it, Randy. Let's go ahead and get it in. I'm going to tell you straight up, man. With this particular fight, that is going to be happening. Two things. I'm happy for Brian Norman. His whole entire family, his team, willing to go forward with this fight. Make sure that, hey, we just want to go ahead and just do what we got to do. We're going to fight whoever's out there who wants to fight us, regardless of any kind of back talk that people are saying behind their backs and everything. I do appreciate them for doing that. Likewise, I appreciate Devin for just challenging himself. In lyrics-wise, I have to say this. I'm not speaking about talent. I'm not talking about skill. I'm talking about just strictly talking about lyrics, people calling people out. Lyrics-wise, Devin will remind in this most recent time, this is what I'm saying here, the most recent time of Lomachenko. How when Lomachenko came in with all of those 500 amateur fights and all the type of things, when he came in, he said, no, he just wants to fight all top people. That's it. I just want to fight the best. I want to do all this stuff. That's all Devin has been saying since he was at 135. I just want to fight the best. I want to do all this stuff, and something that Devin had been saying before they started trying to change some of his image to make him more marketable to fans, because fans just won't accept any version of him, is that he didn't necessarily know if he was going to beat everybody he was calling out. This is what he has said on the record for whatever news outlet that he said these things on. But he did make these statements several times that he didn't know if he was going to beat everyone, but he wanted to fight everyone so he can challenge himself. And in boxing, as you know, the way that you become better is by continually fighting and fighting these diverse competitions where you see different styles. You learn how to do things differently. You learn how to move differently. You learn how to do all this type of things. So I give Devin that credit as well. So those are two things I get credit for going up to this fight, which is going to be at welterweight. Excuse me. And so now going more specifically into this fight, how am I feeling? Especially the fights that Devin had before, most notably Burger King Rai, the fight he had with him, that it was, Ryan was busted for cheating in that fight. So Devin, the fight that Devin got his first L in was the fight that Ryan was cheating in. Let me say it that way. And so they changed all that stuff around. Then Devin had his comeback fight, which I totally was not impressed in. And then now this fight. I wanted to bring those up because I have some concerns, Randy. I have a lot of concerns. And this is why me getting my little fruit punch out of the fridge just now really triggered this whole thing to me. Because in all the fights I've seen Devin in, that punch has been something that's constantly stood out. Not just the opponents that punch him, but Devin punching his opponents. A lot of people have walked through. And before, because Devin and Brian Norman are both in their 20s, I think Brian Norman's a little bit younger, mid 20, 24 years old. And so he still can be growing into his man strength, to maybe get to his man strength within like a year change, if you will, and then move forward. But Devin is past that. So we was giving him a lot of hope. Once Devin gets to his man strength, it's going to be different. Once Devin is no longer being weight drained, it's going to be different. Yeah. In his last couple of fights, I have not seen different, and it's very unfortunate. Devin is he's a great fighter. Devin has all kinds of talent. The problem I'm starting to see is a similar problem with Roy Jones Jr., who was my favorite fighter of the 90s and still, in my book, is one of the greatest fighters of all time, is that much of Roy Jones's pizzazz, if you will, the stuff that we're like, oh, he's just this unstoppable force. It was really due to his athleticism, him being this freak of nature, but not necessarily because of boxing. He had basic boxing abilities, maybe a little bit above average, above basic. Um, but he was not this phenomenal, just technical boxer. It was his athleticism, his freakish talent of given to him from the heavens that allowed him to do all these things that boxers can't do, breaking the rules, but doing things that you're not supposed to do and getting away with it and just looking phenomenal while he did it. And you can tell that because he's aged, you can see him still trying to do the same thing, but slow down, it doesn't work. I'm seeing exactly the similar with Devin Haney. It's very unfortunate. Devin Haney has way better boxing skills than most people, period, from top to bottom. His footwork, his punches, his blocking, his angles, superb, very, very, very good. Uh, but there is an issue with his punch ability, the power he puts in his punches, how he may be shifting certain things. And because he does have this athleticism, allows him to be a lot quicker, to step in and step out, do this, with these kind of really superb technique types of things, overshadows a lot of mistakes that he actually does make. I believe he has better skills than Brian Norman. But I do believe Devin still relies on his athleticism. Brian Norman, being a younger fighter, has athleticism. Devin Haney can get through some of the stuff that Brian Norman does. I don't necessarily see Brian Norman being hurt by Devin's punch, and that's my concern. And so when Brian Norman starts coming back towards Devin to bring his stuff, I'm concerned about how Devin will be able to respond and defend against that, especially if he gets hit several times hard in those areas that I'm speaking about where Devin makes mistakes in. Talk to me, Randy.
First of all, my hat goes off to Devin Haney because, like you said, Devin called out all those guys, man, and Devin was willing to fight and take a chance on losing to the guy. It didn't really matter who he was. If you say he was good, Devin wanted to see was he better. If not, then I think Devin will move on. So Devin, one of those guys we know that's got a lot of heart, and that's what made me like Devin so much is because Devin is almost like a throwback fighter. He don't mind getting in there, mixing it up. If you say you're better than me, let's get in there and let's see who is better. And we don't really have that nowadays. And like I said, that's what I like about Devin. But I like I said, I just don't like this fight for Devin, man, especially um coming off of that Ryan Garcia fight, man. And I think it's still kind of fresh on his mind because we seen how he looked in his last fight. And I think a lot of the reason why he looked like he did in his last fight was because he was a little shell shocked from the Ryan Garcia fight. Because you have to realize, even though Ryan cheated and it was found out that he cheated, it doesn't erase what happened in his mind. Even though the win was erased, but his mental is not erased. You can't unscramble an egg, you can't unring a bell, as they say. What happened? You can't put toothpaste back in the toothpaste after it's been squeezed. So I think that had a major part in the reason why Devin performed like he performed. I really do believe that they would have beaten Brian Norman, and I knew Bill probably had that in mind that getting past he didn't look at this hiccup coming in with Ryan. If they had got past Ryan, I think this Brian Norman Jr. fight would have been easier than it's gonna be for Devin. Devin gonna have to overcome some obstacles to get past this fight here. I mean, he gonna have to dig deep. He gonna have to go to a place that he never been before, um, because the circumstances are not the same as they were before him and Ryan fought. So with that being said, this is gonna be challenging for Devin. I think this is gonna probably make or break Devin's career. I think uh, Brian Norman likes to be on the inside. I think that's what his wheelhouse is on the inside. Of course, we know Devin has the best jab in the business, one of the best jabs in the business. but we didn't get a chance to see that last fight because he didn't slow down to use it. He got on his bicycle. I don't know if they was working on lateral movement because Devin is not really a big mover. He kind of stands in the it kind of stands there. He don't actually stands in the pocket, but he kind of stands there and with his jabs he can kind of
Like from mid range,
command
yeah, I
what's
definitely
going
get
on. Yeah. So but we don't know how he gonna react in this fight. If he stand there and try to trade with Brian, that's gonna be a short night for him, or even a long night. He might take a lot of punishment. Uh, so I mean, I don't really know, but like I said, I don't really like this fight for Devin, man, because of things that played out beforehand. Maybe they should have chose another route. And I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna throw it back at you. But with today's boxers, um, they following trends of other boxers, and what worked for me might not work for you, or work for you might not work for me. And I think they should have had two tune-ups uh, before they took on a fight like Brian Norman, because we know how sometimes your sure thing in boxing always be your upset. And I think they knew that they can beat Brian Norman prior, but they weren't dealing with these conditions that they're dealing with now. And I think this gonna be the thing that come back and bite them in the butt. And how Devin bounced back from here is gonna tell a story. Like I say, these guys, Earl said he don't like tune-ups. Now these guys don't want to do tune-ups. So we're gonna see. So what say you before we get out of here?
man, Randy. Yeah, I mean, your words were beautiful, man. What you said, I mean, I don't, unless people are fanboys, but for true boxing fanatics that love the sport, how long you do beyond that, I think that it's hard to disagree with anything that you said. Period. And one of the things that specifically, and this is why I don't think many people recognize, excuse me, with this. Uh, about that Devin and Ryan fight. Yes, Ryan did cheat, and I'm going to be clear. I think they fought maybe 3 times, maybe a little bit more. For whatever reason, three is sticking in my head. Him and Ryan fought in the amateurs, like these Golden Glove tournaments and everything. I have literally seen two of them. I have them. I've seen it. And this was the issue that I had going into that fight before we knew that Ryan was cheating and all those things, is that exact same left hook that Ryan hit Devin with, dropping him and doing all these things, is what he was hitting him with when they were teenagers. In the that punch, it doesn't change of you still being susceptible to this exact same punch that I hit you with 10 years earlier. You constantly have this thing, and for me, even though Ryan cheated, and I'm not getting around that, but the fact that that punch continues to land without anything is the biggest example I could show to people about this technical flaw that I keep seeing in Devin. I'm using that as a highlight because that's the biggest thing people see. There are so many other flaws that I see, technical flaws in Devin, that he has not corrected. But given this type of example, I think it makes it easier for people to kind of look up the other things and then look at what I'm saying, and they can see that, yeah, he, for whatever reason, still does. But it won't just be Ryan, because they can see almost all his opponents still hit him with that type of punch. These are technical issues that have not been worked out. And to be at this stage in your career, I have a huge problem with that. I have a huge problem. And that's my concern, like what it was with Roy Jones. We focus so much on your athleticism, how great you are, and we don't focus on those specific technical issues that you have a flaw in. And we don't do that. Then when your athleticism, this, whatever God given talent you have starts waning off because of Father Time, then you have to rely only on your boxing technique. And at that time, that's when those technical flaws present themselves. This is why someone like Bernard Hopkins was able to continue fighting until he was in his 50s, because he still had those technical things there, even when he was slowing down. So, anyways, so beyond that, so yeah, you hit some very very good points, especially sorry, in addition to what I just stated about the Ryan, what you were saying about Brian Norman. I have to agree with you as well. Um, we do see Devin fighting, as I've stated, mid range a lot. He can fight in the pocket. He does have very good stuff. That Jorge Linares fight definitely showed people that he could stand right there in the pocket. And so I don't want to say exactly like Bud, but not necessarily get hit and be able to move and create these angles, which is good. But Brian Norman is not coming with these different types of light type of punches and everything. He's coming with all his heart, with everything he's trying to throw. And even if we're in the pocket, I get you in the pocket, I get you to fight in my style, and you try to create these little angles, I still able to step around, I'm still able to grab your arm, I'm still able to hit you with this, hit you with that, and see how you can take this. How do you absorb these types of punches? I'm sorry, as the fight continues on. It's definitely not going to be a toe to toe in close quarters from round 1 until round 12. But when those moments happen, how do you handle that? And then you go and start moving around the ring, and you see that I can move with you, even though I may not have all the technical skills you have, but I can still move with you, and still my punches might land harder than yours. How are you able to deal with that? And and that's the issue. And the very last thing I wanted to add to that is it possible that this Brian Norman fight is actually Devin's true test? We know what happened with him and Ryan Bobby, and it happened in his last thing. Could this be his true test? That's why I'm throwing at you before we go ahead and get out of here. Go ahead, Randy.
I mean, it's possible that it could be his true test. I just still stand on. I just don't like this fight for Devin because even if it is his true test, I don't think Devin is in the position that he was in before the Ryan fight. I think he need a little bit more confidence to see exactly who he would be against Brian Norman Jr. if he had his confidence back. I don't think Devin is going in with confidence. I think Devin is going in on a wing and a prayer. But I want to say this before I close out. Um, I think you mentioned something about he's still getting hit with the same left hook he was getting hit with in the amateurs. I think that's a test to his daddy. You know, his daddy did what he needed to do to get him to the point that he's in the room, he's in the building, he's at the table. Now you need to become a manager instead of being all up in the videos. You need to become a manager and go out and find the best trainers for your son and not run your ego trip to say, you know, I did this for my son. I was there for my son all the way. Because at some point, it no longer becomes about you and your son. It becomes about the trainers. Because contrary to popular belief, not only are two fighters in the ring fighting, but trainers are battling with each other also. Um, and when you got the best trainer, a lot of times you're gonna have the better outcome because this is what they do, and you don't really do what they do. You don't have the experience they have, and you can't coach your uh, 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 fighter to the victory that they need to come to. Uh, with that being said, we're out of here like last year.
Peace.